Chika Nwosu darted between hanging lanterns, adjusting a crimson silk one that had slipped slightly off its hook. The warm glow painted her skin golden, highlighting the determination in her dark eyes. Outside, Seoul's bustling street hummed with evening life, neon signs reflecting off slick pavement. A bell jingled, sharp and deliberate, signaling a customer entering. But when she turned, the last thing she expected was the imposing figure of Hyeon Jin Seo, flanked by two men who moved like shadows. He stepped forward, his gaze cold, assessing. Without a word, his hand knocked a delicate lantern from its place, sending it crashing to the floor. The silk tore, the frame splintered. The sound of breaking wood and the soft pop of paper cut through the shop like a gunshot. Chika's breath hitched for a second before she squared her shoulders. "You break what I work for. You pay. You don't walk out like you own this place," she said, voice steady, though her pulse raced. Hyeon's lips curved into a faint, amused smirk. He said nothing, but the way his eyes lingered on her sent a chill through the room. The bell jingled again as Min-jae peeked nervously from behind the counter. "Chika, maybe we should—" "No, we don't run from shadows," she cut him off. Her words were calm but unyielding. Hyeon moved closer, the scent of expensive cologne mixing with the faint smell of soot from the lanterns. "Bold," he said finally, his voice low and dangerous. "Most people would beg. Most people would cry." Chika didn't flinch. "I'm not most people." The tension crackled. Customers shifted uncomfortably, some frozen in place, unsure whether to intervene. Hyeon's smirk widened slightly, a spark of intrigue lighting his otherwise unreadable expression. The silence stretched, heavy and electric, until Hyeon turned and left without another word, his footsteps echoing down the street. The bell's final jingle hung in the air long after the door shut. Chika exhaled sharply, running her hands over the splintered lantern frame, her jaw tight with suppressed anger and adrenaline. "Are you sure about this?" Min-jae whispered. "He's Hyeon Jin Seo. People disappear for less." "I'm sure," Chika said firmly, picking up fragments of silk and wood. "This shop, my work, my life, it's mine. I won't let anyone take that from me, not even him." By morning the damage rippled outward. Suppliers called, their voices tight with fear. Deliveries stopped arriving. One by one, regular customers canceled their orders, citing rumors that the Mafia was watching. Chika stayed open, determined, but each day felt like walking a tightrope. Every shadow could be Hyeon's men, every passerby a spy. "Why are you doing this, Chika?" Min-jae asked as they patched a lantern together. "You're risking everything." She shook her head. "Because if I give in now, if I let fear dictate my life, then all of it," she gestured to the glowing, colorful lanterns hanging from every corner of the shop, "means nothing." Her words were more to herself than him, but they reminded her why she had chosen this life. To create, to bring light to her neighborhood, to honor both her Nigerian and Korean heritage. Days passed, and Hyeon began visiting again, this time unannounced and alone. He'd lean silently in the doorway, his eyes scanning her work, rarely speaking. When he did, his words were cryptic. "Fire burns bright, but fire can be extinguished," he said once, leaving her more unnerved than angered. Chika studied him silently one evening as he watched her adjust the new lanterns. He was a mountain of presence, cold, meticulous, yet there was something in his gaze that flickered, something human, almost curious. She refused to let herself be distracted, but the tension between them was palpable. She threw herself into work, repairing the broken lanterns, ordering new supplies, and redesigning the shop to withstand sabotage. Yet despite her defiance, she couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. Shadows lingered longer than they should. Eyes followed her every move. 3 nights later, a pair of men arrived at the shop in the early evening. Chika and Min-jae were closing, finishing the last inventory check. "You!" one of them barked, pointing at Chika. "Come with us." Chika's stomach tightened. She glanced at Min-jae, whose eyes pleaded silently for her to comply. But she didn't. Not yet. "I don't think so," she said, her voice low but firm. "You don't get to dictate my life." The man stepped closer, and the air felt thick, suffocating. Chika measured the distance to the door, to the counter, to any potential escape. But she was surrounded. One swift motion later, she was escorted out, moving quickly but resisting silently, her heart pounding. The streets were dim, lit only by lanterns strung along the shops, casting long shadows. The city felt colder somehow, more dangerous. They arrived at a mansion perched above the city. Hyeon Jin Seo stood in the grand hallway, his hands clasped behind his back, waiting. His expression was unreadable, but his presence filled the room, almost suffocating in its intensity. "You're bold," he said simply. "Too bold, perhaps." "I didn't come here to impress you," Chika replied, chin high. "I came because I refuse to be intimidated. I won't bow, I won't run, and I certainly won't be anyone's possession." Hyun's lips curved into the faintest smirk. "No one has ever said that to me before," he admitted softly, almost inaudibly. "You intrigue me." Chika's chest tightened. Intrigue from a man like him was dangerous, intoxicating, and terrifying. She met his gaze, refusing to look away. The air between them was charged. Every step, every glance, every word felt like a spark in dry grass. Chika realized she was standing in the eye of a storm she couldn't yet predict. And yet, something inside her refused to retreat. Even after returning to the safety of her shop, the tension followed her. Hyun's presence haunted her thoughts, his cryptic words echoing in her mind. Shadows outside her shop lingered, and Min-jae's warnings grew more urgent. But Chika was resolute. Every lantern she repaired, every lantern she hung, was a testament to her defiance, her spirit, and the life she refused to surrender. She glanced at a newly hung golden lantern, its warm light casting a halo around her determined face. "I won't break," she whispered, more to herself than anyone else. Not for him, not for anyone. And in the shadows outside, Hyun watched, silently, a dangerous fascination growing with every flicker of her light. Night fell over the streets surrounding Chika's lantern shop, and the soft glow of the remaining lanterns did little to dispel the feeling of eyes watching her every move. She closed the shutters slowly, her hands trembling just slightly, not from fear, but from exhaustion and the weight of constant vigilance. "Chika? They're back," Min-jae whispered, pointing to 2 dark figures leaning against the wall across the street. Their presence was silent but heavy, a wordless reminder that Hyeon Jin Seo's reach was far. Chika squared her shoulders. "Then let them watch," she said, determination sharpening her tone. "I'll keep my shop open, and I won't let fear run my life." But even as she said it, doubt crept in, twisting in her stomach like a coil of fire. Her hands itched to repair broken lanterns, to hang new ones, to fill the shop with light. But the city felt smaller, more dangerous. Every step outside felt measured, every glance over her shoulder a warning. 2 nights later, as Chika worked on a lantern painted with delicate African motifs, a soft chime announced a visitor. She looked up and froze. Hyeon Jin Seo stood in the doorway, alone. His presence seemed to drain the room of warmth, and yet, strangely, the lanterns around him seemed to shine brighter. "You never close early," he said, his voice low, calm, yet filled with an unspoken question. "I never give fear the satisfaction," Chika replied, her hands steady even as her pulse raced. If you're here to intimidate me again, you'll be disappointed. Hyeon stepped inside, moving slowly, deliberately. He didn't touch the lanterns, didn't speak more than necessary. He simply observed, and in the quiet, a dangerous tension built. "Why are you still here?" he asked finally, voice almost a whisper, a sound that seemed more personal than it should. "I have to live my life," Chika said, meeting his gaze directly. "I won't hide. I won't surrender, and I certainly won't let anyone make me smaller than I am." Hyun's lips curved into the faintest smirk. Most people would have fled by now, he said, almost admiringly. "You fascinate me, Chika. Dangerous fascination." Chika didn't answer. Instead, she returned to her work, letting the silence speak louder than words. Hyun lingered a moment longer, then turned and left without another sound, leaving her with a fluttering heartbeat she refused to acknowledge. The days that followed were merciless. Lantern materials failed to arrive on time. Supplies disappeared, and the whispers in the neighborhood grew louder. Rumors that Hyeon Jin Seo's men were everywhere, watching, waiting. Chika's hands ached from repairing broken lanterns. Her eyes burned from sleepless nights. One morning, as she opened the shop, she found several of her newest creations smashed across the floor. Paper torn, frames snapped. A small note lay among the wreckage. "Fire is beautiful, but it can burn you." Minjae's face went pale. "They're sending a message. We can't fight this." Chika knelt to inspect the damage, her fingers brushing against the remnants of her work. Anger, fear, and defiance mingled within her, forging a resolve sharper than any blade. "They think they can scare me," she said, voice steady despite the tremor in her hands. "They don't know me." Her defiance was her armor, and she wore it boldly. That evening, she stayed late, repairing, rehanging, and lighting lanterns with meticulous care. Each lantern became a symbol, a statement that she would not be broken, no matter how much the shadows loomed. Hyeon Jin Seo's fascination with her deepened. He began appearing at odd hours, never speaking more than necessary, watching her resilience with an intensity that unsettled her. He left cryptic notes, and sometimes small gestures, moving a broken lantern aside, leaving a single coin for materials, but never offered help directly, never asked for gratitude. Chika noticed the subtle change in his behavior, the almost imperceptible respect that lingered beneath the danger. She felt a mix of irritation and intrigue. She didn't trust the fascination of a man like him, yet part of her couldn't ignore it. "Why does he do this?" Minjae asked one night as they patched up shattered lantern frames. "If he wanted to scare you, it should have worked by now." Chika paused, holding a strip of silk. "Maybe he doesn't just want to scare me. Maybe he's testing me, seeing if I can survive, if I can stand my ground." Minjae shook his head. "This isn't a game. You could get hurt." "I know the risks," she interrupted gently but firmly. "And if I fall, I'll fall standing." The words echoed in the small shop, blending with the soft glow of lanterns, swaying gently in the evening breeze. 3 nights later, the inevitable confrontation arrived. But Hyun's men appeared just as the shop was closing. Chika was ready. She didn't run, didn't panic. They demanded she come with them. "I won't go," she said, stepping forward, chest high, hands clenched into fists. "Not now! Not ever!" One of the men lunged, but she dodged, agile and swift. Her voice rang clear. "I am not yours to command." Resistance was futile, though, and within moments they had escorted her from the shop. The streets were empty, the soft glow of lanterns casting long, eerie shadows as she moved through them. Her heart pounded not only from the physical struggle, but from the tension, the electric charge that filled the night air. At Hyeon's mansion, the opulence was suffocating, cold, and vast. Chika stood in the grand hallway, unyielding, refusing to be diminished by wealth or power. "You continue to surprise me," Hyeon said quietly, hands behind his back, his gaze locked on hers. Most people would have cried, begged, or fled. "You—" He paused, a flicker of genuine fascination in his eyes. "You stand here and challenge me." "I challenge what's wrong," Chika said evenly. "I challenge fear, oppression, and anyone who thinks they can control me. That includes you." Hyeon stepped closer, and for a moment, the tension between them became almost tangible, thick enough to taste. "Few people have the courage to face me and not blink," he admitted. "You are extraordinary. Dangerous, but extraordinary." Chika met his gaze, unflinching. She realized in that instant that she wasn't just surviving. She was standing on the edge of something dangerous, something powerful, and she wouldn't retreat. Back in her shop the next morning, Chika repaired the lanterns with renewed vigor. Each swing of the hammer, each careful placement of silk, was an act of defiance, a statement of strength. Shadows outside the windows lingered longer than usual, and she knew Hyeon was watching, always watching. She worked through the day, Minji occasionally glancing nervously out the windows, reminding her of the stakes. Yet she continued, letting each lantern glow brighter than the fear that sought to snuff it out. By evening, the shop was alive with light, a small beacon against the growing darkness of Hyeon's influence. And somewhere in the shadows, Hyeon Jin Seo observed silently, captivated not only by her courage but by the brilliance of her spirit, a dangerous fascination that neither of them could ignore. The next morning, Chika woke to the sharp cold biting at her cheeks. Snow had fallen overnight, coating the streets in white and turning the neon reflections of Seoul into a blurred kaleidoscope. She pulled her coat tighter, bracing herself as she stepped outside. Her lantern shop, usually a warm beacon at night, now looked vulnerable under the weight of the snow. As she opened the shutters, her stomach dropped. Several of her newly repaired lanterns lay shattered across the street, some cracked, others smashed entirely. A few were even missing. Among the wreckage, a note fluttered against the icy pavement. "Even light can be crushed," Minjae gasped. "They're escalating, Chika. This is getting worse. We should call someone." "Call someone?" Chika snapped, shaking her head as she brushed the snow off her coat. "No, we survive ourselves. If I close now, if I let fear win, then all of this means nothing. Not the shop, not us, not me." She bent down, carefully collecting the remaining fragments, her hands steady despite the cold and the pounding of her heart. Each broken lantern felt like an assault on her soul, yet she refused to let it break her. The snow crunched under her feet as she worked, setting things right. Her defiance was more than stubbornness, it was survival. That evening, as the streets glowed under strings of lanterns, Hyeon Jin Seo appeared again. Alone this time, he moved quietly toward the shop, his dark coat trailing behind him. He didn't enter immediately. Instead, he watched from the street, hands in pockets, observing how she handled the chaos. Chika noticed him, but didn't flinch. She held a lantern delicately in her hands, placing it back on its hook. "You enjoy this, don't you?" she called out, her voice carrying through the quiet street. Yeon's gaze lifted to meet hers. "Enjoy?" he asked softly, a small smirk forming. "I don't enjoy your suffering. I am fascinated by it. By you. By how you don't break under pressure." Chika's eyebrows furrowed. "Fascination from a man like you is dangerous. I won't let it distract me." He stepped closer, the snow crunching under his boots. "It's not distraction. It's recognition. Few people can stand in my world and not crumble. You do, and it's remarkable." Chika's chest tightened, a strange mix of irritation and intrigue twisting inside her. She wanted to turn away, to ignore him, yet part of her couldn't look. His gaze was like fire and ice combined, dangerous, magnetic, and impossible to dismiss. The tension escalated further over the next few days. Every morning brought new acts of sabotage, broken lanterns, missing silk, threats scribbled on notes left among the wreckage. Minji was near panic, pacing and wringing his hands, while Chika worked tirelessly to repair, replace, and reinforce every fragile piece. "You can't fight this forever," Minji said one night as they stayed late, patching broken frames. "They'll find a way to break you, and then—" "What?" Chika paused, gripping a lantern frame firmly. "Then they'll fail. They think fear can make people small, but I refuse. I stand. And if I fall standing." Her words hung in the air, blending with the flickering glow of lanterns, swaying gently in the winter breeze. Minji shook his head, still unconvinced, but remained silent, letting her determination guide them. Late that night, Hyeon returned. This time he entered the shop. The warmth of the lanterns cast long, flickering shadows across the floor. He moved slowly, deliberately, his eyes scanning the room without touching a thing. "You've rebuilt," he said quietly, "even after all the damage, all the threats." Chika didn't look up. "I have to. This is my life, my work, my heritage. You wouldn't understand." He stepped closer, a shadow falling across her lanterns. "Try me," he murmured. Chika finally met his gaze, fierce and unyielding. "You think you can intimidate me. You think watching, leaving notes, breaking what I build. None of it works. I am not afraid of you." For a moment, Hyeon said nothing. His expression softened, and in the quiet, Chika glimpsed something rare: vulnerability. "No one has ever said that to me," he admitted. "Most people crumble before me. You stand and fight." Chika's hands tightened around a lantern. "Then you learn to respect me. Not just my shop, not just me, but everything I am. You will not own me. Not even you." Hyun's eyes darkened, a flicker of emotion breaking through his cold exterior. He leaned closer, almost imperceptibly. "I am captivated," he said softly. "Dangerous. But I cannot look away." Chika swallowed hard. She hated how the admission made her pulse quicken, hated that it made her wonder what it meant for her life, for her independence. Yet even as fear twisted inside her, she refused to let it control her. The nights grew colder, the snow thicker, and the city quieter under the heavy blanket. One night, as Chika was closing the shop, she found herself face to face with Hyeon in the street. No men, no notes, no threats, just him, standing amid the softly glowing lanterns. "You could walk away," he said simply. "You could leave this city, this danger, and live." Chika shook her head. "And miss this. Miss who I am. You don't get to dictate what I do." Hyun took a step closer. "I don't want to dictate. I want to understand. You, your defiance, your fire." Chika stared at him, wary, but something in his tone made her pause. He wasn't threatening. He was, sincere, dangerous sincerity. "Then understand this," she said slowly. "I will not bow. I will not run. I will not be anyone's possession. You must respect that." Hyun's eyes softened, the faintest shadow of a smile forming. "Then I will respect it," he said, and for the first time he looked almost human. The next morning, Chika found several of her repaired lanterns gone, stolen, not destroyed. Panic threatened to arise, but she pushed it down, focusing instead on the ones that remained. Each lantern she hung, each light she nurtured, became a small victory, a statement. She would not be broken. And in the shadows Hyeon watched, not to intimidate, not to threaten, but to witness her resilience, her courage, the unyielding fire she carried. The fascination that had begun as danger had grown into something more profound, more complicated, and more irresistible than either of them could deny. The quiet streets, lit by lanterns glowing like tiny suns in the snow, held the promise of an inevitable confrontation, one neither of them could avoid forever. Snowflakes swirled through the streets of Seoul, settling on the lanterns that glowed softly in Chika's shop. She stood at the doorway, gloved hands gripping the frame, eyes scanning the empty street. Min-jae hovered nervously behind her, biting his lip. "They're close, aren't they?" he whispered. Chika didn't answer. She had known this moment was coming. Every shattered lantern, every cryptic note, every shadowed glance had led here. She had survived, endured, and resisted. Now it was time to face the storm head-on. From the street, Hyeon Jin Seo emerged, his dark coat brushing against the snow. No men flanked him. No threats accompanied him. Just him, cold, dangerous. And yet, beneath the menace, there was something else, something that made her heart beat faster. "You didn't leave," he said, voice low but carrying over the crunch of snow, "even after everything." "I never planned to," Chika replied, chin high. "I told you, I don't bow, I don't run, and I certainly don't surrender." Hyeon studied her for a long moment, the city lights reflected in his dark eyes, mingling with the glow of lanterns and snowflakes. "Few people stand like this," he admitted. "Most would have given in long ago. But you fascinate me. Dangerous, brilliant, unyielding." Chika's pulse quickened. She hated how much it did. She hated how drawn she felt, even while every instinct screamed caution, yet she refused to look away. "Then understand this," she said. "I will not be owned. I will not be a prize, a possession, or a pawn. You will respect me, my life, my work, my choices." Hyeon nodded slowly, the first genuine softness she had ever seen on his face. "I will," he said. "I will respect you, not as someone to command, but as your equal." The words hung in the snowy air, heavier than any threat, more potent than any act of violence. For the first time, Chika saw him, not just as a Mafia king, but as a man capable of understanding, of acknowledging her strength without trying to crush it. Snow drifted onto her shoulders, her hair dusted in white. She felt the tension that had been coiled inside her for weeks begin to loosen. The storm inside her heart, meeting the storm of the city streets. "You could still walk away," Hyeon murmured, stepping closer. "Leave this world. Leave me, and protect yourself." "I don't run from storms," Chika said simply, eyes flashing. "I face them, and I face you." For a long moment, they simply stood there, facing each other amid the softly glowing lanterns. The city around them was hushed, as if the world itself were holding its breath. Then Hyeon's expression shifted, a decision forming in his gaze. "I will dismantle my world for you," he said, voice firm, "but only if we stand side by side, equal, partners. No more fear, no more domination, only respect." Chika's chest tightened. It was more than words, it was a promise. A surrender not to him, but to the possibility of trust, partnership, and shared strength. Slowly, deliberately, she nodded. "Then we stand together," she said. The snow continued to fall, soft and quiet, blanketing the street in white. Lanterns swayed gently, their glow reflecting in the falling flakes, painting the world in colors of resilience, defiance, and hope. Hyeon reached out, his hand brushing against hers. For a brief moment, the past weeks, the danger, the sabotage, the fear, felt like a distant memory, eclipsed by the promise of something new. As they walked side by side, the glow of the lanterns illuminating their path, Minjae trailed behind, a quiet smile on his face. The city felt different somehow, softer, warmer, filled with potential rather than threat. Back inside the shop, Chika carefully hung a new lantern, a golden one at the very center, its light strong and unwavering. She turned to Hyeon, meeting his gaze, and for the first time they both smiled. Not as adversaries, not as hunter and prey, but as equals, partners facing the world together. Comment below, Chika thought, a playful smile touching her lips as she looked at the camera if this were a video. Let us know if you've ever stood up to someone like this, if you've ever fought for what's yours. She laughed softly. And don't forget to like and subscribe to see how we navigate this storm together. Hyeon's laugh, low and almost shy, joined hers. The tension between them dissolved into something lighter, warmer. Snowflakes fell onto their shoulders, lantern light reflecting in their eyes, and for the first time neither fear nor fascination dominated. Only a quiet, powerful partnership. The night stretched on, quiet and gentle. The city around them alive, but softened by snow and lantern light. Chika knew there would be challenges ahead. Hyeon's world was dangerous, unpredictable. But for the first time she felt prepared. Not because she would fight alone, but because she would stand beside someone who understood, respected, and matched her strength. And in that quiet, glowing street, surrounded by lanterns and the soft fall of snow, a new story began. One of defiance, resilience, love, and equality. A story that would light the way forward, no matter what shadows came next. If you've been captivated by Chika's courage and her fiery spirit, don't forget to comment your favorite moment. Hit like to support her journey, and subscribe to follow the full story as it unfolds. Trust me, you won't want to miss what happens next.